For some reason that came up in my box to hit continue and a voice came up. Well, it looks like the clock is ticking and we are at 11 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome our first time attendees and new members. If you have a chance, please introduce yourself using the chat box. We'd like to see who you are and where you're at. So also, and a big thank you for joining us for our monthly meeting, our virtual meeting. We are looking forward to soon maybe hosting these in person. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. All right, next slide, please. So as most of you know, CASH has a new member portal. So please sign in, set up your individual profile today so you can utilize the new tools and membership perks with this new software program. So once you're logged in, you can access events, handouts, manage your membership, connect with other members directly, and just a lot more features as well. So you were emailed your access information on April 30th. If you need assistance logging in or help with it, or somehow it's just not working, please reach out to Aileen DeLon over at our CASH site. She should be able to help you with anything getting that set up. So next slide, let's talk about some upcoming web events. So this web shop Thursday is tomorrow, and it's going to address the GAN limit trends, budget indicators as seen in 2021-22, state budget May revision, and enrollment trends in California. Also construction cost indicators. And I'm going to tell you that is my nightmare right now, is trying to get a budget on several large projects we're doing and how we're going to do it. So I would really going to be in on that and see what those cost indicators are. So registration and full details for tomorrow's web shop are available on the CASH web shop page. So make sure you use the new portal login. That's when you need that. And then the CASH 2021 webinar series will continue on Thursday, June 3rd. This webinar series is free to CASH members. And the next web shop is going to be held on June 10th and will cover federal stimulus funds and school construction again. So that's going to be important. And so that one on the June 10th and the 3rd, we're both going to have our registration and full details coming soon. You'll get an email from CASH on that. All right, next slide. Okay, first up, we have John Gordon with the California Department of Education update. Good morning, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Behind you, that's gorgeous.
Thank you. It's, it is hiking season. People try to get out and get some fresh air, and it kind of calms the mind, soothes the soul. It's good stuff. So I have a couple of things I want to share with folks today. I recently, the Department of Education has conducted a webinar as it relates to AB 86, ESSERS 1, 2, and GEAR. So it's a one-time state and federal funding, and how you may be able to use those funds for capital improvement projects. We have posted the PowerPoint presentation and the FAQs to our What's New page. We are in the process of finalizing the recording of the webinar, and we'll be posting it on that page as well. So keep on the lookout for that, as well as refining the FAQs, because there were a lot of questions that came out of that. I would like to remind people that this federal funding is, as it's new for everyone, it includes us bureaucrats here at the Department of Education. It is continuing to evolve, and so as updates and guidance from the feds come in, please continue to be patient with us as we see this thing continue to unfold. Also want to share that we are anticipating presenting any updated information related to these one-time federal and state fundings at the CASH conference at our presentation. We usually do a CDE presentation, so we're hoping to have some time set aside to discuss that in person with folks. Also want to share that Juan Morales, myself, Rob Corley, and Jennifer Schwinn will be at the conference this year. So if you have a project that you would like to discuss in person with Rob or Jen, since if they're your field reps, please reach out to them, schedule some time while they're out there and sit down, have a cup of coffee and discuss what's going on. I found that when I was a field rep, those are some of the most valuable segments of time for me to sit down and get updates of what's going on in your district and how, as a CDE field rep, how I might be able to support you, as well as look at some designs and things that's coming up in your world. So please feel free to reach out and discuss them. And if you want to talk to me, that's great too. Speaking of AB 86, I wanted to remind folks that the compliance certification form that's due on or before June 1 at CDE. This is part of that $2 billion set aside that for in-person instruction grants. And so just make sure that your district completes the online form to be eligible for full funding. If you have any questions as it relates to AB 86, feel free to email the team, and that's at inpersongrants@cde.ca.gov. In-person grants, one word, at cde.ca.gov. Finally, as I mentioned last month, we are quickly approaching fire season. At CDE, we have a small but mighty school disaster and emergency management team. You might want to check out our webpage, which has information on emergency trainings, as well as disaster relief grants and other things. So if you type in school disaster in the search bar on the CDE website, I believe the top link, because I tested it this morning, should get you right to that page. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the team, and they're at emergency services, again, one word, emergency services at cde.ca.gov. That's what I have today. Any questions?
I didn't see any come in the chat box, but thank you so much on that. That's really comprehensive. We are looking forward to a little more clarification on how we are going to be filing for some of those stimulus funds. We're still, feeling like we're all over the place there. So,
well, it's really, for lack of better words, it is a little wonky. I know the words, there's still a little bit of clarification and guidance, we're looking for, and I understand that there's new guidance being posted weekly, and so we're, I hate to use this phrase because it's just overused, but it's like you're building the plane as you fly it, and so we're just taking secondhand information and just rolling with it. So we do appreciate people's patience. I know sometimes it is taking a little bit longer for the team on the Ed Relief Funds at cde.ca.gov, that email box. I know it is taking folks sometimes a little bit longer. Sometimes in these situations, as I mentioned last month, it's kind of, here you go, here's some money, and you're not really set up for the staffing levels, as well as just interpreting what the heck is going on. And so there's a lot of that, and as the dust continues to settle, we're being as responsive as we can.
That's awesome.
Julie, if I can, it's Tom Duffy. John, how are you?
How are you, Tom?
It's always, how come I always get that look when I ask you questions? It's like,
well, I have to know if depending on what you're going to ask, if I have to do like this matrix move and go like this as you're firing your questions at me. So,
well, no matrix hopefully today, but we have communicated with Juan in your office, and hopefully I CC'd you. We're hopeful that you and Juan and others from CDE can be with us on the 10th of June, where we talk about how to continue or even commence construction projects while students are coming back to school and are on the campus, because that's happening. But also to have you help us navigate the answers to the questions of how those federal funds may be spent, and what are the guidelines? You know, we want to, we're rule followers. We may press the envelope, but we're rule followers. So we're hopeful that you can be with us on that day. It's a couple weeks from now.
We'll need to follow up with Juan, and always defer to him as he's my director, and so I can't make any promises or commitment, but I will be following up with him after this meeting. Thank you.
It's my way of saying put something on your calendar for us just in the event, okay? And we do have a follow up with him coming up next week.
You're always on my calendar, Tom. I always know, you know, I got to leave some room for Tom Duffy.
Well, thank you very much, Don.
Yeah, John, Tom doesn't want you to go hiking that day is what it is. He wants you to be around with that cell phone connection, right?
Well, actually, that's what I'm hoping. Maybe he and I could meet, and we'll, you know, maybe we'll discuss this while we're climbing Half Dome. I bet you Jeff Becker is in shape for that. We could do that.
Yeah, Jeff is in shape for that. He's got the knees for it too. Again, more discussion. Just like you said, we'll probably keep this at the CASH conference at the end of June. So again, we're going to be thrilled to have you there, and all the members from CDE. That's going to be great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, next up, we have from the Office of Public School Construction, Lisa Silverman. Hey, welcome, Lisa.
My finger too fast. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? I see you have a pyramid behind you.
I do, because I'm at home today, which is great. Not having connectivity issues. I was having connectivity issues last month, but yeah, it's another day, and it's another day in paradise. It's May, and we are getting closer to the summer, and it just feels like summer today. But just a few highlights, just to update on our agenda, just to let you know that our agenda just got a little lighter last night. So, and if you click on the link to our supporting materials, we do have a postponement on one of the appeals that we're planning to present. So that tipped-in appeal will be presented in the future. And so tonight will be pretty much a consent agenda. So I just want to give you folks an update on that area. As far as the updates in the agenda, just wanted to highlight that we have close to $260 million that we're presenting in the consent agenda. So that's great news. With respect to the projects that had extensions, so we were just catching things up related to the extensions on the program grants. And it's really critical because as we get closer to, we have a priority funding round currently open, and it closes off June 10th. So that's really important for the board to take action on these projects tonight. But anyone who has an unfunded approval, we have a certification round that's open, and then that closes June 10th. So please submit your certification, and you can actually do that electronically with our office. So we want to encourage folks to do that. So if you submit your certification for an unfunded approval, it is valid from July 1st to December 31st of next year. And that's really critical for the fall bond sale. And that's critical for us to demonstrate what needs we have for the program. So again, unfunded approval, and you will have the ability to submit a certification. June 10th is the deadline. So this is why May is really important, and we do our best to get as many projects as we possibly can to that May board. And that is one of the highlights. As far as the apportionments that we provided last month, it was a good chunk of funds that did go out. I believe it was like 520, sorry. We had about $189 million in requests that came in, fund release requests. That's great news. If you're not familiar with the release of our funds. And we also had a training class. One of our workshops we featured was how to complete a fund release request online via OPSC online. So again, we want to provide some new processes and new online features. But folks, if you have a fund release request to submit to our office, there's a couple ways you can do it. Do it through OPSC online, or you can still submit that information to us.
Which is normal because some people would put one on the phone and on their computer in case they lose.
Tom, you need to mute.
So yeah, you can have the ability to submit it electronically or via email to our office. And yes, we still accept paper. So again, we really want to encourage districts that the timeline to submit your fund release request is July 27th. Things are still moving at a pretty fast clip, so we're not really worried about districts missing the deadlines, but we still have communication with districts just in case as we get closer to those deadlines. As far as our virtual training series, as I mentioned, we had one on the fund release request, and if you missed that opportunity, again, go to our virtual webpage, and we have the whole series of all the virtual trainings we had offered. But this last one was on the fund release request, so and how to do that through OPSC online. So as of today, we have 11 workshops that we featured, and there are about 753 external participants. So again, this is a great tool for a lot of you folks. If you didn't have time to join us during the live workshops, you also could join us, just have access to our resource page, look at our OPSC YouTube page as well. And we'll have some additional announcements coming up, I would say sometime in June, for some workshops in the fall. So I would imagine we have at least 3 more coming, but I would say probably at least 5 by the end of the year. So again, looking forward to some more workshop opportunities. So more to come. And then our next meeting is June 23rd. And then as far as the CASH conference, yeah, we'll see folks there. I know Barbara will be participating in the facility hardship and seismic workshop. She'll be providing an overview of how you can apply for those program grants. And then we're also going to have a demo workshop on OPSC online. So if you're more of a hands-on person and you really want to know how to really navigate through our online process, we're going to have a few folks there that can help you navigate through the process. So bring your live documents and we're going to demo that and we can actually submit it for you. So it's pretty easy. And we have some smart folks that are really actually helpful in navigating you through that process. So again, you can have some hands-on folks that could help you navigate. I know it's easy to say through a Zoom process that it's easy, but you can actually have some hands-on instruction. So join us at the CASH conference, and I plan to be there. And with that, I know I have July 8th and 10th. I plan to actually be at the school leadership venue with the other state agencies. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Julie, if I may interrupt again, Lisa, good morning.
Hey, Tom.
Just two things. The allocation board agenda, I believe, has a July meeting scheduled. Frequently, that meeting is postponed because, or eliminated because the legislature typically takes a break during July. We know it's an unusual time. We're not sure exactly what will happen. Do you have an idea whether or not that meeting will happen, or?
Yeah, I believe it's a no-go.
Okay.
Your vacation plans are safe.
Okay. Well, and maybe yours too. Maybe yours too.
Yeah.
And the second, if you could just comment on the issue that you and Barbara and I spoke about more recently, the troubling issue of enrollments being not what they were expected because of the COVID environment. Could you just maybe mention what you're doing with that and your anticipation of when you have the board visit this question?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing the topic up, and it's an important topic. I know we've been having, lots of discussions, even since last summer, with a number of folks, school districts and interested parties. I know, Tom, I've had a couple of conversations with Rebecca. And so, and again, it's really, really paying attention to what do we think that the ADA impacts are going to be. And we really wanted to really gather more data with respect to the applications we're processing for new construction. And so we've been gathering more data as we, so to speak, and because we notified districts 3 months in advance that we're going to be processing your application. And to that extent, we've been doing that. And so far, I know we've had a few appeals, and we wanted to really gather as much information we possibly can. I know we provided some solutions for some districts and been creative to that extent, but I know there are some challenges and we can't solve them all. So instead of handling, some of the appeals separately, we want to have a larger policy discussion, and we're bringing that in August. And really, again, it's really trying to map out what opportunities that the board may have in this area and really see what we can do to solve this issue. And, maybe one size doesn't fit all. And so again, we're still exploring and we're still kind of in the ground floor of trying to figure out what opportunities we have for the board to present this area. So more to come. And I hope we have some interesting conversations with the board, and at least an interesting and a solution and how we solve this topic. So, and it's really an important area that, again, we want to carefully be able to provide some options. So again, I really appreciate those who've had contacted our office and have the dialogue with us, because it's really an important conversation.
And Lisa, just want to invite you again, if you get a chance to tune in tomorrow. Our web shop is really looking at trends, and it's looking at trends involving construction costs. It's looking at what's happening to the population in California, what's happening to growth in cities with housing, but also at this question of what's happening, because all of this is really something that affects the population of students that are enrolling in schools. The question of what really can we do if a leader in a school district is needing to project enrollments for budgets, for the number of teachers, the number of classrooms needed, that projection is extremely important, and they need that. They need that information. They need to have some tool to utilize today, and that tool is a difficult thing to achieve because of what's happening. But then that affects the applications for funding to your agency, and we will touch on this as well. We'll touch on the impacts, and you're welcome to join us, and not putting you on the spot to talk at all, but just if you'd like to listen, we'd like to have you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, no, and again, I'd like to acknowledge, I know I've talked to Nancy, and I should have mentioned Nancy earlier, and Rebecca, and Tom, and I know Matt as well. And I know my team have talked to a number of school districts regarding this issue. And again, it's an important topic. So we appreciate the collaboration. And again, we're here to solve problems together. And that's really what we want to do. So I appreciate your time, and looking forward to seeing you all at the CASH conference. More to come.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Looking forward to seeing you too. I mean, it'll be a little warm, but it's going to be nice here. You'll get as much sunshine as you need.
Yeah, exactly. What's warm, right? It's relative.
That's what air conditioning's for. That's our.
Exactly. Well, thank you for having me today.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
See you soon.
All right. Next up, we have our CASH Legislative, Regulatory, and Maintenance Network updates. We have Rebecca Curley and Ian Padilla, who will be providing an update on current legislation and regulatory issues and maintenance network update. Yay, Rebecca's back. Yay. It's great to see you. Just in time to help educate our leaders in Sacramento on the importance of school facilities. We need you.
Well, I've got one more little guy who's going to be in one of those facilities in about 5 years. So very happy to be back, Julie. Thank you for the welcome.
Again, congratulations and best wishes with Ron.
Thank you so much. So I am excited to be here today and to also see everybody next month at the conference in Palm Springs. I am planning to enjoy the sun while we're there. But in Sacramento, things are very busy right now. We are at that very fun stage of the year where budget is as hot as it can possibly be, but so is the legislative process and all the work that's being done on bills. So it's a really exciting time to be back and working on facilities issues. For the budget in general, you all have probably heard the stories of lots of money. So we've got a $75.7 billion surplus. That really means dollars in excess of what had been planned when we were having these conversations last year on the budget. This is $196 billion in anticipated expenditures. And this is all coming from the governor issuing his May revision budget proposal. We've seen a lot of federal relief come in, over $25 billion. And the governor is proposing a $100 billion California comeback plan. So he's got special proposals to address things like housing, homelessness, drought, water, small businesses that are all part of this one-time spending bolstered by both increased revenues and the federal support. The goal for the legislature and the governor right now is to figure out how to spend a lot of this money on one-time things. So it won't be an ongoing liability when we inevitably have that dip in revenues or we don't have as much federal money coming our way in future years. For K-12, this means that we're at the highest level ever for spending in Proposition 98. And we've got a pretty decent one-time cushion of funding as well. The Senate and the Assembly are both meeting this week and next week to try and finalize their own versions of the budget. So they're going through the governor's May revision proposals and any January proposals that still need to be acted on. We expect that the full budget committees will probably meet next week to close out the Senate and Assembly proposals on the budget package. And conference committee will meet to reconcile any differences between those two houses. So negotiations are still happening with the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor, but they will pass a budget by the constitutional deadline of June 15th, and that'll go to the governor. For facilities items in the budget, there was no change to Prop 51. So we are still expecting $1.5 billion for the school facility program and Prop 51, our bond funded programs in the next fiscal year. A couple of other quick things to mention that came out in the May revision. One, the governor proposed an additional $2 billion for COVID response grant for K-12 to fund health and safety activities, testing, vaccine initiatives, cleaning, PPE, ventilation, all of that in the May revision. Seems like this one may end up on the chopping block. Both the Legislative Analyst's Office and the legislature are questioning if it's needed given all of the federal money that has come in. Another big proposal that will potentially have some pretty significant facilities impacts, the governor is proposing a whole new grade level to be created. So transitional kindergarten would become universal. He would like to phase this in over 4 years. Looks like the legislature may be asking for a little bit more time to phase that in, but they are very interested in adding this new grade level and phasing it in over time. When fully implemented, the governor expects this to cost about $2.7 billion per year. But obviously that'll have some significant impacts on facilities. We know that the facilities that best serve these students are not your typical 960 square foot classroom. So Julie, we have the return of the tiny toilets. I can't remember the phrase that you used for the tiny toilets. What is it?
It was little tiny potties.
The tiny potties. So they're back. And we will be encouraging our policymakers to understand that sort of an immediate need exists if we're going to start housing an additional grade level, and that there are also impacts on our existing school facility programs. So a lot to think about here on how to thoughtfully do that. But it is exciting to be thinking about welcoming a whole new group of our youngest learners onto our campuses. As far as facilities funding proposals go, the governor proposed some additional money for the full day kindergarten facilities grant program, an additional $190 million, but said, hey, in the first year, we should allow our transitional kindergarten facilities to have first priority for that funding. I think we all know that that's probably not enough to cover all of the needs to construct and retrofit facilities for a whole new grade level, especially on such a quick timeline. The Senate and the Assembly seem to be looking at whether or not that's the appropriate amount and how that prioritization might work. Spoiler, they're also thinking about how our existing preschool program fits in with all of this, since a lot of the kids that would be eligible for transitional kindergarten are being served by the state preschool program. So lots more here. We will know more in the coming days as we sift through the Assembly and Senate conversations and rebuttals to the governor's proposal. I'm going to shift gears a little bit on budget and move to our bond bills. So we do have some good news on those. They are both continuing to move through the legislative process. So we have AB 75, which is authored by Assemblymember O'Donnell, and then SB 22 by Senator Glazer. Both of those bills did pass out of their respective appropriations committees, and we're expecting them to come up for votes on the floor of their respective houses next week. The deadline to pass out of the House of Origin is June 4th. So we'll be looking for that, hopefully, to happen. For AB 75, that bill was amended coming out of Appropriations Committee and is now a $12 billion bond for K-14. We don't know the split yet between K-12 and community colleges, but they did put that dollar amount in there. And we're not sure yet what election that would be, but it would be for a 2022 vote. And that's kind of where we are. We'll keep you posted on the progress of the bond bills as well. And Julie, I will hand it over to, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Ian. Is that right, Ian?
Yes.
Question first, Rebecca. Well, not one. I'm really, as much as I love the idea of a full day TK and more early childhood, the programs don't really interact, right? You can't have your early childhood on a play area. So it's not just the classrooms that we don't have, it's the space for the additional play area that's necessary for the kids, as well as outdoor restroom facilities. And that's for the kinder, the TK, and the early childhood. Why? Because we have the restroom facilities in the classrooms, which is great, but during recess, we can't send them back into the classroom unsupervised for a restroom. And it's just really an issue. And so if we were able to address that at the same time of what we're really loading our playground areas to do.
Julie, that is a really great point. I'm actually taking a note on the outdoor restroom facilities. That's an excellent point. I know that under Title V, our facilities look different for the youngest learners than they do. So it's not as simple as just dropping a 960 square foot box somewhere on your campus and saying, well, our program is housed. You've got all of these other ancillary considerations to best meet their needs. So I think that's a really great point, Julie, and something that Cash can really help bring forward in the conversation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Sorry, Ian, I didn't mean to step into your time. And by the way, I'm just as excited to see you as I was Rebecca.
Thank you very much. No, we're all excited to see Rebecca. So yes, I was going to mention something as well. So yeah, no baby pictures yet, but I'm sure if you come to the conference, you might see one. So
right.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to do just go through a couple of bills that some of our organizations are looking at. In the legislative process, we've kind of been through or almost done with the first house. So the policy committees and the fiscal committees. So the ones that come out of the first fiscal committee are bills that we take note of because they didn't die in the first house, right? So as you know, we follow a lot of bills in the first part of the year. Some of those are dropped off, 2-year bills and so on. So focusing just on a few that we think are important for school facilities, obviously, as well as we've had some inquiries on this first bill that I'm going to talk about. So The first one is actually under the School Energy Coalition. I'm doing that because the School Energy Coalition has the expertise in energy and resiliency issues, and it's done a lot of work on AB 1139 by Assemblywoman Gonzalez. This has to do with net energy metering, right? Everyone knows what that is. Basically, excuse me, it requires the utility company to buy excess solar energy at full retail. So of course, for schools and incentives to go solar and even more broadly, right, to meet the state's energy goals, the NEAM piece as it is now, basically NEAM 2.0 is kind of where we want to be. This bill proposes a NEAM 3.0, and without getting into all the details, it's not advantageous for schools. One of the pieces is that compensation will be at wholesale prices, things of that nature. So a lot of schools and school organizations are aware of the bill now, and are bringing up issues. Some are opposing, some are opposed unless amended. The School Energy Coalition still has an opposed unless amended position on the bill. Basically what that means is schools want out of this bill, out of this scheme. We want to stick with NEAM 2.0. Schools really aren't the problem. Schools already pay more than they get back in many ways. The research shows that. So we're making those arguments and others. Some of the good news is the Association of California School Administrators, ACSA, is joining us on a floor alert to bring up some of these issues because the bill is going forward. So without getting too far into it, this bill is part of a broader issue in this area because the California Energy Commission is looking at this issue, and this bill is related to that effort. They're somewhat connected. So there's all those issues as well. But wanted to assure folks that we are definitely bringing up some of the issues that the bill as proposed currently would propose for schools. Again, there was an attempt to address some of the issues, some concerns that I'm talking about that others have brought up in some recent amendments, but frankly, they just don't do enough for us to remove our opposed unless amended position. So we'll keep going on that. We know that's a significant piece. Again, for all the particularly rooftop solar to really pencil out to help schools meet those state energy goals. This is an important piece. So the School Energy Coalition, Cash, others are on the case. So I wanted to let you know. And if you have questions about that, you can talk to myself, Nancy Chavez Espinosa, she was not able to be here today. And I also wanted to mention she did some nice work on this. Last Friday, there was a coalition of folks that actually did an in-person presser at the Capitol opposing this bill. And she went out there and was part of that, made some very nice comments on that, expressing these concerns. That is a pretty big deal because in the COVID era, there hasn't been a lot of these types of efforts. And it shows you, I think, a little bit that there definitely is some opposition to this bill. And we'll keep going on that and keep you up to date. Couple more bills, kind of just under cash itself is AB 1329, a Nazarian. Has to do with seismic safety, proposing functional recovery standards. Is something a little bit concerns us, anything in seismic safety. It does appear that hospitals and schools, basically folks that are regulated by the department or DSA, are exempted from the bill. So we think we're okay, but we're continuing to look at how that plays out actually. I wanted to let you know that Cash has done some work on that bill and it is definitely aware of it. So there's that one. The last one is AB 599 by Joan Sawyer. And again, you've heard me mention that. That has to do with Williams inspections, basically updating the universe of Williams inspections, right? It was frozen in 2013. because of the academic performance index, which doesn't exist anymore. This bill is trying to update it for the LCAP era, basically using some of those, updating the indicators and so on. So we think it's a good bill. Cash is supporting the County School Facilities Consortium is supporting, and also has done a lot of work on the bill and will continue to do so, because while the general concept is good, what are the impact of these new measurements and so on, and how it will affect this list and so on. So good bill. We want to see more of the details, so we'll support it as we go through. And that kind of, I'm going to close on that kind of brings us to everyone's talking about ventilation. You certainly heard me talk about it with 841 and other pieces. You hear a lot of folks talking about federal funding and state funding for that, in addition to 841. You heard Mr. Gordon from the California Department of Education speak, a couple of speakers before me, about their work to try to hone down on these programs. And I will say that I participated in their webinar last Thursday, and I think they're doing a really good job. So look to them for some of that more precise, specific, on the ground information about these funding programs. We know that a lot of funding is good, but it's kind of overwhelming and everyone's searching around about specifics. I think some of the information that they're developing, it can be very helpful with ventilation and those types of projects, but in general. So now I'm going to close with a big pitch. Like everyone, I am also going to be attending all of the CASH conference and very much looking forward to that. Whoever comes, I encourage you to come. Really looking forward to seeing folks in person for obvious reasons. The Cash Maintenance Network is going to have a very good program all the way through that. As you know, we're going to be starting off with the CMMCP graduations on the Monday. We have our maintenance trade show at 4 o'clock on Monday, always well attended. That should be really good. We have all the workshops, and we think they're very topical this year. Certainly, the networking is very valuable. And then on the last day, the early maintenance breakfast, to encourage all folks. Everyone is welcome to come to all of these. And just a quick preview of some of the workshops, and you'll see kind of a theme: prioritizing student wellness through healthy buildings and best practices. Much of the issues that we're talking about. SB 1383 and organic waste reduction. Sounds kind of nerdy, but that's a very important issue, and because the requirement to recycle organic waste is significant, and it has facilities impacts. So I'm going to personally try to go that one. And then, of course, we have a lot of other ones related to this. Utilizing your M&O staff advantageously during the crisis. M&O 101 and 102, those should be very good this year in particular, just because of everything that's going on. So that's all to say we have a very full, the maintenance network is a very full agenda and program offerings and social or network opportunities at the conference. Hope to see you there, and love to talk to you. So with that, thank you.
Great, Ian. Hey, Ian, what are we going to do with all this plexiglass?
I don't know, but I hear about that, and the face shields. I hear there's folks have those stored up in. Those aren't as popular anymore. I know. It's going to be very interesting. We'll have to do some repurposing. It seems to me, hopefully.
I know it's frightening when you think about the amount of plexiglass that's been produced and what are we going to do with it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. I hear a lot of folks talking about that. Yeah, that's exactly right. As we kind of move towards more reopening and less restriction in general. So, yep.
I'm going to buy a piece of land out of nowhere and just have you just come in and I'll charge you to drop it off, right?
Exactly. Or just stack them all together, maybe. Yeah. So.
Exactly. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. We have what we've been waiting for today is our 42nd annual conference. Jeff Becker, what's going on?
Oh, hey, good morning, Julie. I am super excited. I know super excited, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but to be so close to our annual conference, great to hear from our state agencies that are going to be there and participating. So many topics that we need to get together and discuss. And John Gordon, you've got me going up Half Dome again. I haven't done that in 17 years, but okay, let's go. We'll figure it out. You know, a 17-mile hike between friends, you know, what could go wrong? We did have the CASH board and annual conference planning committee earlier this week on Monday met in Palm Springs to preview the facility, take a look at how it's going to be configured, and prepare us for the protocols that are going to be in place. And it's looking really, really good. I think that we can accommodate any measures that are going to be in place, and we'll certainly wait to see what comes out on June 15th as California moves from the tier system to a more open economy, but we're going to be prepared for it to do it well and do it safely. So really, really excited about the conference. And if you have not done so already, you can check out the CASH website again, 4 weeks away from the conference. So if you would like to join us, if you have not registered already, please do so. You'll find information also about any remaining sponsorship opportunities, as well as the trade show. And it's my understanding the booths are all sold out for the trade show. So that will be another full event. So really looking forward to getting back in person in that regard. The hotels for the conference, the 2 official conference hotels have been sold out, but there are many hotels in the area. And again, on the CASH website, you can find more information about that. So yeah, just again, really excited to get back together in person, see all of our colleagues, and have a great time at the conference with a lot of good learning and discussion of some really pertinent topics in school facilities right now. And plexiglass, I'm thinking about giving mine to our CTE program and letting them figure out what to do with it. I'm sure they'll figure out something to mill out of all of that.
Jeff, maybe we give it some way, figure out how to use it with our 3D printers and build these classrooms we need for TK.
There you go. We could build plexiglass TK classrooms. That might be kind of hot in Palm Springs and Fresno.
Pretty hot. Be almost like a little bug in a micro being down on it. So. Well, Jeff, that is all exciting. I am pretty happy actually about our meeting last Monday and having the planning committee there and having you guys walk through the convention center and just get that visual of what's going to be. So,
yeah, and it may be a little bit hot, right? But we know easy does it when it's hot, and it'll be great.
Well, the good thing is there are plenty of pools at the hotels out here. And, if you haven't registered for the conference yet or having trouble getting a hotel room, remember Palm Springs is tons of Airbnbs. So think about coming out early, get an Airbnb, bring your family out. There's lots of things to do here in the desert for kids. So that might be an option, or your company may decide to come and rent a house and have several people stay at the house if you're not able to get a hotel. So there's lots of options here if you haven't registered yet and need space to come and stay.
Great, thanks, Julie.
All right, next, you know what I'm going to say? We've got Tony Wald coming up next from West Contra Costa Unified School District. He's going to talk about his 19 reopening experience. But I did want to say before we get too far in, I know we're right at the end, I just wanted to welcome Brett Williams with Claridge Products, who put in the chat box, Jim Harris from Savannah School District. And then we've got Brad Fife from Lake Elsinore Unified School District. So welcome, they were in the chat box. I just want to thank you guys for attending. And then let's go ahead and let's bring Tony up. Hi, Tony, come on.
Hi, so reopening like all of ours was a challenge beyond any challenge. We took a really proactive approach and actually brought in forensic analysts through our risk management to do a ventilation study for all of our sites. So we actually had ventilation metrics. And even with that, like everyone else, we had to buy these simple air filters and do different things just to get ourselves going. But The challenge that we're still facing is really what we just talked about today. How do you balance the fact that we need TK classrooms, we need preschool classrooms, and you talked about the outdoor bathrooms, but like you also started to say, we really need more square footage because there's not enough play structures to separate them out. But then you add on top of that, food services is another facilities area that we've been struggling with our reopening. We, like many urban districts, went to the seamless summer feeding program. So we actually do boxes every Thursday with 21 meals in each box, and we give out 20,000 boxes. So you can do the math there to figure out that we're at 500,000 meals every week going out. That program continues next year, but we're back in school and our schools aren't equipped for all of the lunches. So we're trying to, on the facility side, how do you run lunch in a socially distanced way? How do you put more preschool students in a socially distanced way? And how do you do the kinder? In our mind, it's not going to be as easy as dropping portables. Really, if they want to make things work, you really need to take your existing kindergarten building, tear it down, and put a brand new 2-story to double the capacity, which is a whole other challenge. But for us, our biggest ongoing challenge is just how do you work with labor to keep the schools clean? We're stuck with our unions right now wanting to do a time and motion study. The legislation to not be able to lay off classified employees changes the paradigm, and pretty much every other bill that we talked about has a little rider in that says hire new staff, new custodians, new paraprofessionals. So I think from the maintenance side, the biggest challenges we've had is that the expectations and the scrutiny is higher than it's ever been on our facilities. And we need to find a way through cash and through all the other challenges to continue to articulate that there aren't enough people to do everything the exact same way people want it done. So we've got to find that right median. We were lucky. We did get a partial reopening. We're moving towards the fall. But I think our biggest learning in all of this is that we need to do a better job of articulating what our facilities were built to do and not do. And I'll stop there if there's other questions, because I'm not sure if I even answered what I was supposed to.
Tony, you hit the mark, and again, thank you for being with us. And this is Tom Duffy. I think you probably know my voice, but the things that you talked about, we have explored since this pandemic began in March of 2020, in terms of the impact on classified employees, the health and safety of classified employees and certificated employees that have been on campus as well. But the classified service, you know, as we like to say, it's the backbone of a school district, and they have been there day after day doing the kinds of things you described, like serving 500,000 lunches, and that's gone on throughout California. The issues you talk about in terms of working with the associations, we've asked each person that has done what you're doing to talk about that, and ask them if there's any insights as to what they've learned and what they've gained in the communications of how we work in this constrained environment of social distancing, with mask wearing, communications, and all that. So any insights you can share with us?
So I think that the biggest one, and it's by classifications, we had to take one approach with our custodial, a different approach with our maintenance team, a third approach with our food services. And that's probably going to be my biggest challenge next year. Because of the amount of meals we're serving and we couldn't hire more people, we're going to run probably the biggest profit you'll ever see in a single year food services. I might actually have a Fund 13 profit of over $12 to $15 million. So in my mind, I want to immediately, because CDE is going to come running with their spend down plan. It's almost too logical to start down the process of modernizing kitchen facilities, which, as you know, Tom, is always a challenge with cafeteria funds and trying to find the match. But I think for us, we did create a process with our classified. We paid them a little more. We didn't do hazard pay, but we did other incentives to keep them there. We did, when we returned this year, we did an in-person stipend for anyone working in person using the in-person instruction grant and the ELO grant that most districts got. And we gave that to the classified that had been on the ground. So they got the same dollar amount as teachers coming back. And in our mind, that connects that glue back. And that's been our focus, is we're really dialing in on the trades side, because we know that we're, like most districts, the majority of our tradesmen are about to retire in the next 2-3 years, and getting new ones is really hard. So we're doing classification changes and really trying to build in those areas, because we know the ongoing maintenance of districts since, I mean, in the last 10 years, once Fund 14 went away, it's really become a challenge for us. So we're trying to use this pandemic money and time to reinvest in our maintenance department to try to get some stability moving forward. So I'd say that's probably the greatest best practice.
And thank you. Thank you for that. And again, we're recording this, so we can go back and listen to the words of wisdom that you offered us. But back to the facilities question. You know, you mentioned cafeterias and food service, and that's always been a struggle because of constraints on the use of the dollars from food service. But those are expensive facilities to build or to refurbish. Here during this pandemic, we've seen that cafeterias and food service have been ever more important, not just to the school district, but to the communities that have struggled with the economics of the pandemic. And so that's something that I think we need to explore further, just underscoring what you've said. And going back to your comment and Rebecca's comments about kindergarten, and Julie and the cash board had a discussion about this on Monday, and that is, you cannot just, and Rebecca said it, you just can't take a 960 classroom and put it on a campus and say we're covering kindergarten, because you need more space, you need toilet rooms that are immediately accessible. And your comment about going up makes sense. The code requires a dedicated stairwell for kindergarten children to come down, so no other grade can use them. But that's something that we just build in and find a way to fund. But we want to keep you close by, Tony, as we meet these challenges, because of the experience that you have and the solutions you're coming up with. So thank you very much for being with us today.
I'll leave you with this. We've got that kinder facilities legislation that's moving forward to potentially go to the ballot. I think we need to add one on food services, because I know there's some grants coming out for food services. The ideal would be to have a matching grant that allowed Fund 13 to be matched with state to do cafeteria upgrades. That would take away the challenge that every district has, that nobody can fix that problem. And that's probably your pathway. While you've got the Skinner bill about to go forward as to, it might be a perfect tag on to her bill, is to get something on the facility side that just gave some flexibility to use Fund 13 for construction. So just a thought as you guys do your work.
No, and it just reminds me that under the old program, under the old lease purchase program before the school facility program, there was actually a calculation of square footage and even for equipment for kitchens and for cafeterias. That was all collapsed into the pupil grant, and therefore is not something that is identified unless the district identifies it, and they're expensive to build anyway. But this you're not the first person that's brought this up recently, by the way, that people see this as something that if there is a matching program, that would make sense. Incentivize districts to put that in a local bond, incentivize a negotiation with a developer, the use of other funds.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, if you're going to add something for your food service, make sure the vehicles, as they start to purchase those, that they're electric, and include the EV charging for those vehicles would be really important as well. Food service is one of the easier ones, I shouldn't say easier, probably there's going to be more availability of vehicles that will work for their department to go electric. And that's so important that we start thinking, remember, we've got to make sure that not only are we having space and buildings, we need offices. We are dying for offices in our district. We've got all these people that we're going to look to hire, and we can't put them in closets anymore. Our closets are all filled. So we need real offices to meet with students. And that is something that we are just lacking here, is that space for those people that are going to be coming in to help us get our kids back up to grade level and with some mental health issues. And so we need to give those people professional spaces on school campuses that they can do their job in.
So our architects on the line, you got to change the way you're doing your P2Ps. That bottom floor has got to have those offices and other things built in.
I think it starts with how our funding of our new construction is.
Oh, yeah.
Is based on classrooms, not on the ancillary facilities that will need to go in those for our offices. And that's sometimes when we're trying to make those budgets and keep that line tight, those are the first things that go, right?
Yep.
So that's the tough part. Anyway, so lots of things we've got to do over the next year or so in making sure that where our direction is and what's best for our students is that we have facilities that are appropriate for our students and also appropriate for the people that will be serving our students. So with that, let's go to the next slide and we'll wrap up here today. Our job exchange and people's choice. So if you have an upcoming RFP or RFQ, a job opening at your district, please utilize the Cash Professional Opportunities Job Board with our new software that will link you up to reach a wider and more diverse audience. Cash members can log in to the Cash website and post their jobs or RFQs and RFPs to that website. So please take the opportunity to use that. All right, next is our last slide, and that's so please mark your calendars for the next Cash Day, which is June 23rd next month, and that's just a week before the conference. So you're probably going to hear all kinds of updates of what's going to be happening even more at the conference, so you can be prepared and making sure that you get those right workshops and you get to meet with the right CDE person, the right OPSC person. Hopefully we'll have some DSA people here too. So those are all the people we're hoping that you're going to be able to have access to. And we are thrilled that they're going to be able to join us in Palm Springs. I'm going to look at the chat box one more time. So I see something from Mary Morris, and their size for original campus size, not additional portables. That always seems to get added on. We always add portables on that. And I think we hit most of the concerns in the chat box. Again, I thank you everyone for joining us today. I'll let you go and enjoy your lunch, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow for our Thursday web shop. So take care. Have a good evening.